Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
He's retired from the DEA. During his career, he worked undercover with outlaw motorcycle gangs, drug cartels. He survived cancer and numerous critical incidents. He's going to talk about how he managed nervousness and all the trauma in his career. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. You know, we used to have an app, and it was a very popular app. And then, guess what? We couldn't hold a candle to our Facebook presence. How many people have the mobile Facebook app already installed on their phone? How many people use it on their computer? Make sure you follow us. Make sure you like us on our Facebook page. Just search for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast, and be sure to send us a comment to one of the posts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Joining us from Colorado, we have David Tyree on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. David is retired DEA, and during his career, he worked undercover with some of the most notorious, violent, I'll call them outlaw motorcycle gangs, because there's a big difference between a gang and a club. Drug cartels. He survived cancer, and as you would probably suspect, lots of traumatic incidents, and he's here to talk about that. He's one of the movers and shakers for Validate Financial. That's Valid, the number 8 Financial. Just go to their website, validatefinancial.com with the number 8 instead of ATE. That's validatefinancial.com. David, thanks for being guest on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and thanks for your service. Both very much appreciated.
Well, thank you for having me, Jay. I sure appreciate your time and your energy and all you do to support law enforcement around the world.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I spent some time in the Baltimore Police Department, and during my career, I was detailed to DEA for just about 2 years in Baltimore, investigating Jamaican drug gangs, and they were ultra violent. The one thing I want people to understand, and maybe we'll talk about this in your story, I was always lousy and never really did good at undercover. I was great at plain clothes and surveillance and support teams. There's a huge difference, isn't there?
Oh, boy, yeah. You can ask anyone I worked with at DEA. I'm horrible at surveillance. So, yeah, I think a lot of those are learned skills that sometimes diminish, like firearms. You know, it's a diminishing skill. You know, undercover for me came easier. I think I grew up in an addicted home, so it didn't shock me. I knew some of the language already just from growing up. So for me, it was easy because I was sort of conditioned as a child. You know, you kind of learn to lie to survive. So the best lies are often the truth, and I think that served me when I was working undercover. Although, you know, there are stories, Jay, where there was one time I was undercover with a gentleman from the Knights of the Templar cartel, and when he was arrested in a buy-bust operation, so I made several controlled buys from this individual, met with this individual. When he was arrested in a post-arrest interview, they were going through his phone, the agents, and he had my number in his phone as Policía, which is Spanish for police.
Uh-huh.
I didn't believe it. And so the agent, as an undercover, you don't typically want to go re-engage these folks that have been arrested. But one of the great interviewing agents came out, showed me the phone, and I went in and I spoke with this gentleman, and I said, well, what's going on? If you've got my name and your phone is police, if you knew I was law enforcement, why would you sell me drugs?
Right.
And this guy told me, he said, hey, this is the only way I could get out of the cartel. He said, I'll go do 10 years, but every time I tried to get out, they would keep dropping additional drugs on me.
With that old Sopranos thing, I try to walk away, I try to get out, and they suck me back in.
Yeah. I didn't even know there was a Godfather 3 movie, but yes, I'm kidding. I knew there was a Godfather 3 movie, but that's it, right? That is what we're dealing with, our law enforcement now today is dealing with, is that these same traffickers that are dealing around the country, they're also being exploited by the hierarchy, on the organizations. And I think we need to look at it that way at times to understand that these organizations, the folks that aren't touching the drugs anymore, that they're doing the best, right? They're the ones driving the shiny cars and living in the expensive homes. That seems to be the standard around the world. So
here's what two things I want you to address. Number one, and this goes to a lot of conversations I have, especially on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Be sure to follow that. And people say it was a undercover police car, and I'm like, if you knew it was a police car, it wasn't undercover. It was a unmarked car. There's a huge difference. And the second one is, we Hollywood does this all the time, that we are bombarded with this image, a stereotype of the criminal mastermind, the genius, and the vast majority of people we speak with, we deal with on a daily basis, are far from that. They're morons.
Right. They're hardworking morons, but they are morons. I mean, they're exposing themselves to criminal penalties, prison, over narcotics. And you would think they'd know better, right? They must know the risk going into it.
You would think. I know a lot of people that have told their stories, and it's a little bit different thing, but it's the same people. Sex trafficking, human trafficking. People send their children somewhere in the hope of a better life financially. They'll be better off. They'll do better. They get involved with drug cartels. I just got to be a mule. I got to do this. It's no big deal. They'll pay me $5,000. They take all the risk. And meanwhile, the hot shot, the shot caller is immune from all that because they put layers into place that makes it really difficult to get hold of them.
Exactly. And so, again, it goes to I look at both ends. So you've got your end state drug users, right? Arguably the weakest in our communities, and that's not a judgment, but they are addicts, right? So the traffickers, the organizations are making money off the misery of other people, right? Think about the families, think about the loved ones around these people that are using narcotics. And then you've got the couriers. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, whether it was in the great state of New Mexico, Oregon, or Wyoming, where I worked, where the highway patrol would do these traffic stops of we called them suicide loads. I mean, 50, 60, 600 pounds of narcotics. And you interview these couriers, and they were getting paid a pittance.
Right.
No money, really. And yet they're the ones going to prison. So my vision was always, and I worked with some great investigators at the state level, city level, federal level, that were always trying to work those interdictions up chain, back to the sources, and also down chain to the redistributors. It was not uncommon to have a narcotic load interdicted out of California that was destined for Florida. And I'd work with some great investigators that were able to, through looking at telephone toll records, bank records, et cetera, sort of build out this organization. And we had some great prosecutors who would then develop that investigation, corroborate testimony, and we were getting indictments. I mean, I worked with folks that were getting indictments in other countries. And I thought, this is what we do to make a difference. And now, obviously, go after their assets, their proceeds, their ill-gotten gain. We have to take out the economic incentive around this criminal activity. So banks are trying to do this. Law enforcement's trying to do this. It kind of takes a village to get everybody thinking in those terms of, okay, and I often, when I train law enforcement, I speak about, like, look, if you went to Target and all you were going to do, arrest the cart pushers, are we making a difference? Now, to some, and maybe in the parking lot you are, but if we're going to actually take out the economic incentive for people to shop at Target, we have to go after cashiers, mid-level managers, the higher-level managers. Ultimately, what we really want to go after are those distributors sending product to Target.
And we're going to take a short break on that note. We're talking with David Tyree, retired DEA. We're going to return. We're going to talk about his undercover career working with, or against, I should say, some of the most notorious, most violent outlaw motorcycle gangs, drug cartels, and whatnot. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
How would you like a free ebook on tips to improve your health? We're talking about tips you can use for free to add years to your life and possibly improve the quality of your years. Best of all, the ebook is free to download at lethealthy.com. When we say free, we mean free. No credit card, no sales funnels, none of that stuff. So you can download the free ebook to improve your physical health, all while preserving your financial health. Get the ebook for free today at lethealthy.com. That's at lethealthy.com. Again, the website is lethealthy.com.
Returning a conversation with David Tyree. David is retired DEA. He is now one of the movers and shakers for Validate Financial. That's the number 8 instead of ATE. Their website is validatefinancial.com. During his career, he specialized in undercover work. He worked with some of the most violent, notorious outlaw motorcycle gangs out there, drug cartels, you name it. And, of course, he went through a lot of the critical incidents that a lot of people do. He's here to talk about those. David, first of all, your career. Where did you start in DEA and where did you retire out of?
I started in September of 1998. I was hired out of Eugene, Oregon. And my first office was Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was 23 years old at the time, second youngest in my class. So shortly upon arriving to Albuquerque, 5 years, did a lot of undercover while I was there, moved up to Portland, Oregon, where I'm an Oregon native, also happily did undercover there, moved overseas to Portugal and West Africa. I was a drug liaison officer, so you're not really doing undercover. You're working with your local counterparts, and then finished up in Wyoming as an agent, and then did undercover while an agent in Wyoming, and then promoted the last 5 years. I was resident agent in charge and had the honor and privilege of working with some of the greatest law enforcement from the state and the city and local level there. So I retired in April of 2023.
How did you get into the whole undercover thing? Because and is that something you aspired to? Hey, I'm going to do this.
As I said, I was one of the youngest agents in the office, and a good friend of mine who was a task force officer knew I wanted to do undercover. I thought that would be the best part of my experience with DEA, and through an informant he introduced me to, I was ultimately introduced to a motorcycle gang that was trafficking methamphetamine, pseudoephedrine, and cooking methamphetamines. Now, I should tell you, Jay, I'd never ridden a motorcycle in my life. I'm more of a Vespa guy, although now I actually have a couple motorcycles. But at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. And so really it was through some of the state police investigators and the informant, they were teaching me the best ways to operate and act as an undercover, which I didn't know at the time involved a lot of meetings and conversations that were never even close to criminal, because what you're doing is building trust with an organization, and oftentimes that was over dinner, drinks, just hanging out, which looking back, I probably thought I was 20 feet tall at the time, but safety first. I had a great cover team. You're always armed. And over time, actually, it was a little bit strange. I can reflect back. You almost become, in a way, friendly with these criminal actors as you are trying to extract information from them about the larger network and work your way up the food chain. Oftentimes, by the way, you're not committing crimes with them. You're just building rapport over time by kind of hanging out, if that makes sense.
And by the way, I looked at pictures of you. You don't, and pictures can be very deceiving because they're like headshots don't show the whole body. You don't come off as looking like an outlaw biker.
No, and I think that's what made it appealing to them, because they were looking to me to traffic at the university and around to students at the University of New Mexico. So again, working with state and local counterparts, I had the backstory, I had a identification. They never wanted to see any of that. I had all of that with me, but I was really careful to have a strong backstory. Ironically, I was married at the time, and thank you for the photo comments. I was probably carved up at the time. But I think part of being an undercover is you don't need to come in and be super intimidating. I have worked with a great undercover from DEA, and he was a college athlete. And oftentimes the bad guys thought he just got out of prison because he was pretty muscular. Not me. I didn't have to worry about that. It looked like I just got out of a Jack LaLanne stretching class. So I don't think I intimidated too many of these traffickers.
It's all right. The point is this, David, it takes all kinds. And again, that's a misconception that a lot of people put out there. So and I'll just say this. A lot of police in the United States, when they go into plainclothes narcotics work, all of a sudden they want to look like they're the bad guy. And quite often that's not in the most effective way. You don't want to look like the bad guy. You don't want to stand out, but you don't want to look like the bad guy. You don't have to be a tough guy at all.
Jay, towards the end of my career, I represented myself as a money launderer, and I would show up to meetings in a suit. Because that's how the informants introduced me. Hey, he's laundering money. Why would I dress looking like a thug or a gang member? So I would wear a suit, and I got to tell you, on more than one occasion, I had the bad guys bringing me narcotics for free. Like, they weren't charging me. They were just trying to give me samples because they assumed I had a lot of money and I had a lot of connections. So again, the best lies are often the truth. And working overseas with the undercover units there, they would always refer to it as the legend. So you're creating a legend, and you better be prepared to answer any and all questions that legend would ask of you. And so a part of that is, when I was representing myself as a money launderer, I had to explain to these organizations how it was I could launder their money. And I got to tell you, if you've watched Lethal Weapon 2, it's pretty easy to confuse people around money laundering. So I got a kick out of doing that kind of stuff. Another story I'll tell you really quickly is the nerves, right? You're very, very nervous when you cover, because it's very difficult for people to lie to begin with. I had a senior agent who was watching me. He could tell I was nervous. It was a hotel room operation. And the senior agent said, listen, we've got you on video. I want you to say a word. I'm going to give you a word to say while you're doing your undercover. If you say it, I'm going to buy you lunch. The word was medulla oblongata.
Yeah,
true story.
Really easy word to come up in passing conversation, by the way. Right. But it distracted me enough. It calmed my nerves, because I think the alternative was I was going to have to buy him lunch, and he was a big guy. So I'm in the hotel room. I'm buying a half kilo of cocaine as an undercover, and the source of supply comes into the hotel room, and I've got a boxing match on. And this guy is trying to engage me and make the transaction happen. He doesn't want to be there any more than I do. And I said, hold. I'm watching this boxing match. This guy's going to get hit in the medulla oblongata. Best calzone I ever had. Faggio's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Best calzone you'll ever get. But I was so grateful for that wisdom of that senior agent to take me aside and say, look, I know you're nervous. That's ego. Don't worry about it. I'm going to walk you through this. He'd done a bunch of undercover. So it's an industrial pass down of knowledge that narcs get in their career. And I'll tell you, I shaved my head, what hair I had left. I bleached my hair. I put in earrings. I got introduced to a higher level informant, and he looks at me and says, what are you doing? Because I can't bring you anywhere. He goes, grow your hair out, get rid of the earrings. You're supposed to look normal. We're looking for folks in my organization that I'm going to introduce you to that blend in. Right.
You're going to hide in plain sight. And I'll be honest, it was the best lesson I ever learned. I wore my wedding ring to the undercover deals. No one asked if I was married, but it gave me an out if the organization wanted me to do something that was either illegal, immoral, or outside of policy. I could hold my wedding ring and say, yeah, sorry, my wife's not going to like that.
She's not game for that. We're talking with David Tyree. He is retired DEA agent. He's one of the movers and shakers for Validate Financial. That's the number 8 instead of ATE. Their website is validatefinancial.com. You can find us on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. We return to Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We're going to talk more about undercover work and controlling those nerves. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I'm going to let you in a little secret that's been a game changer for me with social media. You can get details at letpops.com. It's a redirect, letpops.com. It's called Chatbots. They're Meta partners, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, and soon to be TikTok. You can turn those people that visit and engage with your content on social media into consumers and then sometimes customers, and you can market to them. Get details. Best of all, you can get started for free. letpops.com. That's letpops.com. Again, it's letpops.com. Return our conversation with David Tyree, retired DEA, and I'm a little jealous. I'm a little gel, be honest with you, his undercover career, because I was lousy at undercover. I was good at plain clothes, lousy at undercover. He'll tell you it's the exact opposite for him. He's one of the movers and shakers for Validate Financial. That's the number 8 instead of ATE. Their website is validatefinancial.com. That's valid, the number 8 financial.com. Which we'll talk about a little bit later on. I'm kind of fascinated with the undercover things because there were guys I worked with. I say guys, that means men and women. They were really good at undercover work. They were Baltimore police. They were DEA. They were really, really good at it. It was like you could tell the brand new folks, they were nervous. But after that, it was like just doing their job. And no matter what, I could never, I always say this, and it's not an insult, I will always look like the cop. I could be 87 years old, walking down the old folks' home with the walker, and people go, shh, there's 5-0. And I'm okay with that. It didn't prevent me from being good at undercover. What prevented me from being good at undercover was I was not a good actor. So I guess the question I wanted, something you alluded to in the last part of the conversation was authenticity. And a lot of people in radio are like, well, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be honest. And what I was always taught, and with undercover work and police work and radio work, is always tell the truth because you can't keep track of lies. And it's okay to exaggerate the truth, right, the good, the bad, the ugly. But if it's the truth, it's always the truth. It's always consistent. Was that what you mean by authenticity?
Yes, it is exactly what I mean, and I'll add to that. I think, I went in, I was always very, very nervous, and so to alleviate that, admitting I was nervous of the bad guys, not because I'm an undercover DEA agent, but you can take that nervous energy, which is almost like fire, and you can make it fuel, or you can hide behind it. I chose to make it fuel, and so I got a kick out of the act. I did things deliberately to make things awkward for the targets. I mean, I would talk about, there was one time we were at a bar, and of course I'm with another undercover who's Mr. Motorcycle, the bad guy who's a cocaine source. Well, the bartender comes over, and I said, hey, I'd like a apple teeny. Well, that threw everybody off. They started laughing at me. Oh, you're drinking an apple teeny? I look over at the other undercover, tell the bad guy, hey, I met this guy at a Star Wars convention. I didn't go, but he did, right? And now everyone's laughing at this idea of Star Wars conventions, undercover acting, and I'm just using my nerves and a sense of humor, and basically my thought that I should be a stand-up comedian, to lighten the mood. And then, ultimately when I'm actually doing those controlled purchases of narcotics, I just tell the bad guy, hey man, I'm really nervous. I've been to jail once before. I just don't want to go back, right? And you know what? Then you have the bad guy you're wearing a recorder, and the bad guy is trying to alleviate your nerves versus coming off like you're some kind of tough guy, but then your hands are shaking like a dog.
Right.
Well, that's not going to fly. They're going to make you. They're going to say, you're a cop. And you know what other thing I'll tell you? I learned from informants, only cops always do the deal. Bad guys will walk away. So there was many times where I said, yeah, I don't like your price. Come back when you can come deal with me at a better price. Now, who taught me that? Cops? No. The informants taught me this. The other undercovers who had been around and lived to talk about it. So that's sort of my mindset was always, you're going to be nervous. This is either fuel for the fire, or you're going to hide behind those nerves and you're not going to accomplish the mission. And remember, you know this, Jay, it's a mission, right? It's a tough mission, and we have to do it. And so that mindset that I had was, I'm not going to make up stories that I can't verify. And the other thing I would tell you, I never came off as desperate. I always came off as, if I can't do the deal with you, if you're dealing drugs today, you'll be dealing drugs tomorrow. That's right. So I'm going to make it work for me in a way that's safe, that's tactically thoughtful. I'm not putting my team at risk, and I'm certainly not putting my life at risk. That was the mindset I learned from some great leadership at DEA, obviously from the state and locals as well. We all talked about, hey, is this even necessary? Like, is there a purpose behind what we're doing? Because it's a calculated risk.
Now, is it true? I would imagine, I'm phrasing this because I was lousy at undercover work, but they're nervous too. It's not just you. That's like, they've got a lot on the line as well, so they're feeling you out, I'm sure, during the process.
Yes, exactly. And again, I think the challenging part for that is it's really tough for people to lie. Good guys and bad guys. There's books about this. So again, alleviating those nerves is sometimes is less is more. But what I found was, in my experience, over time, where you're having meetings and you're not doing anything criminal, I would try and invite these guys golfing. I'm a horrible golfer. I would do whatever I could to try and bring them out of their element, because if they're dealing pounds of methamphetamine or kilos of cocaine and I'm just another customer, how am I working beyond person I'm dealing with? So ultimately, my goal was always to push them beyond what they were capable of, so they would then introduce me to their boss, right? Our goal at DEA was always to disrupt and dismantle the larger organization. So that was my lived story. I'm grateful that I can walk on the other side of it. I'll tell you, some of these folks that are in prison or were in prison, I was always kind to them. I treated them with dignity and respect, as did my teams. And that's why I'm able to walk on God's green earth the way I do today.
And that's another misconception of Hollywood those put out there. Most of the people I arrested, there's one spot on the planet I will never go to on vacation. That's Jamaica, because I know someone's going to recognize me. They'll recognize my voice. And so other than that, the overwhelming majority of people that we dealt with, even the people we arrested, was not animosity. And there was no call, no reason to treat them other than other human beings struggling.
I think right now, in our culture today, law enforcement is leading the charge in transparency, authenticity, and accountability. I watch it. I watch all over the country. I watch the news. I watch all the sides. And I continue to see law enforcement leading through example. And I go back to what you said about treating people with dignity and respect. That's why we signed up for this job, right? We want to make communities a better place, a safer place for everybody, even the bad guys.
That's right.
So that was my mindset. I worked with folks my entire career, both domestically and abroad, that shared that mindset. And I wish our greater communities knew that and appreciated it, because they have to understand, we stare at the belly of the beast. You know this. We stare at the belly of the beast all day long. And to keep a positive attitude towards humanity is really, really tough.
And sometimes I struggle with that, David, to be honest.
Want you to give that up.
At this point in my life, I'm not very sociable with people.
No, me neither. Me either. Oh, you should hear me driving. I'm horrible. But it's only because I think once you see it, and you know this as well as I do, when you see that person driving like a jerk, you know they're committing other crime.
Yep.
And I'm talking about the person barreling down, 30 miles an hour, and they're going 60, cutting through lanes of traffic. You know they're committing other crimes, and you think, can't you just be a part? Can't you be one of the good guys? So that's always been my charge and my admonition is just be one of the good guys, even when no one's watching. It's not that hard.
It's really not. And so, like, we have dogs and cats. And what I always say this jokingly, my best friend in the entire world is a male Rottweiler at 6 years old. His name's Enoch. He doesn't demand much of me. I don't ask him to do anything. He's a great companion. People, on the other hand, can be more difficult to read. I try not to assume the worst about people. I say try. We return to our conversation with David Tyree. He's retired DEA. We're going to talk about more of his undercover career and how he does what he does today, which he's one of the movers and shakers for Valid8 Financial. That's number 8 instead of ATE. Their website is Valid8, the number 8financial.com. There's another location online where you can find the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast. That's medium.com. It's spelled medium.com. Medium has 100 million average monthly total users. Look for and follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on medium.com. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. I promise you. We'll be right back.
Remember when free meant free? No charge, no credit card information needed. Well, a place like that still exists on the internet. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show website, letradio.com. Where everything is free, including the podcast, episodes are available after airing on radio. The website is letradio.com. That's letradio.com. Where free means free.
Return our conversation with David Tyree on a Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. He's retired DEA. He's one of the movers and shakers for Valid8 Financial. That's number 8. Valid8 Financial. The website is Valid8, the number, financial.com. And I was fascinated by our conversation about undercover work, and there's a lot of similarities from my career and your career. One thing, I will say this, I was not good undercover. I was good at plain clothes and surveillance, totally different ball of wax. But one thing that I've been relatively lucky is, other than my mood, which at times can suffer, and I'm not very sociable with people, is I've got good health. You had cancer towards the end of your career, didn't you?
I sure did. And by the way, I thought I had great health. I had an agent in my office came in and dared me to meet with my doctor to get Cologuard. I was 40 years old. I was like, I don't need to get Cologuard. Long story short, doctor wouldn't give me Cologuard, ordered a colonoscopy. I had no symptoms and came out with stage 2A colorectal cancer, which is now the number one killer of men over 50 and women over 50. And there's a skyrocketing rate for people under 50. So here I am, 48 years old, resident agent in charge of the great state of Wyoming's DEA. And I had 16 weeks of chemotherapy, 5 weeks of radiation. And it was halfway through, maybe two-thirds way through chemo. I'm sitting in the chair at the hospital, chemo port coming in, and my acting supervisor's calling my phone. He knows I'm getting chemo today. I finally pick up. He says, man, boss, we've been in a shooting. Now, I can't tell you of another time in my life where I felt so completely out of control, just for my team, for the critical incident. And I am so grateful for the leadership I had with the DEA folks. The supervisor at the time that was acting on my behalf handled the shooting, no big deal. I share that story because, one, I hope all listeners will get screened for colorectal cancer, colon cancer.
Regardless of your age and how you feel, get it done. By the way, I'm having a colonoscopy done early part of next month.
Oh, well, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but hey, we got to do it.
The procedure is great. It's a piece of cake. The prep is horrible. I'll just say that it's horrible.
The prep's horrible. The prep's horrible, but look, it's like we'll just pretend it's your vacation to Jamaica, and you just say it could be worse. Because at the end of the day, I'm cancer-free. I beat this thing. I got some tattoos because of it. And it does go back to, and what my doctors talked about was, hey, there's a lot of stress in your line of work. So I talk a lot about stress management through exercise, not just exercise, diet, holistically, whatever you got to do to get centered makes a big difference because and it drives my wife crazy, but I was taught that the DEA, narcotics work in general, it's a jealous mistress. And it's true. It never loves you back. And so I think the stress becomes addictive, and I look back and I think, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was saying the stress became addictive for me. The adrenaline became an addiction problem itself. And I was good. I always say this, I was good when all the stuff was going on. It's when I retired, got hurt and retired, then things got quiet, the struggles began.
Right. No, I mean, there's a dopamine release around it. I remember a case where it was my anniversary dinner, and my partner came to the restaurant and said, "We've got to go serve a subpoena," and I couldn't wait to go. I was so excited. It's addictive, and as long as you can manage that dopamine release around the stress, I think you're in good shape. We all know the negative ways to manage that stress, and I'll agree with you. Once I retired, wow, the 5 stages of grief, man. Yeah. I was like, I missed this terribly. Thankfully, I still get to talk with some of my colleagues. I watch what they're doing on social media, on the news, and I'm so proud to be a part of all the great work that they're doing. So it's fun to bask in their glory without any of the stress or pressure that they must be feeling.
I had recently had Jack McFarland on the show, retired DEA, and one of the things he talked about is the mandatory retirement. How old were you when you retired?
I left at 50, unlike Mad Jack McFarland, who nothing but love and respect. He was my PT instructor at the academy. Insane what he had us go through. Best shape of my life, by the way. I left at 50 because my background is in money laundering. I was designated in federal court as a subject matter expert in money laundering and drug detection, and I've been working with a lot of different financial institutions to help them combat financial crime. And a large financial institution came to me and, like in The Godfather, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I audited their financial crimes program for 14 months, and it was absolutely fascinating. Could fill the Grand Canyon with what I did not know about how banks understand money movement and illegal money movement. So that's why I left. And here I am now at Validate Financial. I'm their senior advisor in financial crime and money laundering. Essentially, they have a software platform that makes a storyboard of flow of funds. So what I mean is if law enforcement uploads banks into this platform, within about 2 hours, it turns around one-page storyboard showing you where the money went in, where the money goes out, different accounts, assets, etc. I use it for pattern of life cases on highway interdictions across the country. We use it in fentanyl overdose cases, human trafficking investigations. It's just great. The bank records don't lie.
No, they don't.
They tell a story. No, and juries understand money movement, I think often better than they understand how drugs are transversed around this country. So that's what I've been doing since January of this year, and I've never been happier since leaving DEA. It's just a great platform to help law enforcement understand money movement. I mean, you could use it in a DUI case. If you're back in Baltimore and someone gets pulled over and they say, I wasn't drinking, you grab their bank records. Really? Well, you're at TGI Fridays, you spent $88 on beer. We can show this from your bank records, 20 minutes before the stop. In the discovery process, you just hopefully got yourself out of a trial by providing evidence that would corroborate the law enforcement supposition. So I love the platform. I love what it does. And for me, it's great to get to work with law enforcement again, talking them through their investigations. We are a partner-based solution. And like I said, I love following the money. I love seizing the money. I love taking out the economic incentive for bad guys to commit crimes. I think it makes a difference in our communities. I
was going to say, and one of the great things about working with the DEA in my experience was their equipment. And they had the manpower that we did not have, but they had the equipment. Oh, my goodness. You name it. They had it. Cars. They had everything. The other thing
with the toys
was seizing their assets. Nothing felt better than cracking open a safe deposit box with a subpoena that's owned or rented by a drug dealer. And we did that, and we took cars off the street. We did everything in the world because, and it's not a power thing. A lot of people think it is. It's really about hurting them where it really hurts, which is financial. Most of these people don't even use their own product, but they're in it for the money.
Right, and it's a 99% profit. I mean, listen, when I was working with the Europeans, I mean, they were interdicting boatloads of narcotics, ton quantities all the time. And it was always about the money, like who in Europe is paying for this out of South America. And when you started to peel back that onion and see the transnational organized crimes, the cartels, terrorist organizations, it opened my eyes to the drug trafficking is just a means to an end. And ultimately, it's having political influence where they live and affecting their ideologies. And so we have to and we can do better. And that is not to besmirch all the good work that's happening all over the world. It's just we've got to take their money as well. Because, again, it's a 99% profit industry, right? Drug trafficking. Yeah. So if we're not going after the money, they can grow more coca leaves, they can grow more marijuana, they can make more fentanyl. Take their money, they can't reconstitute. And we know this. It's just people in the world, we know that you take away somebody's money, they're no good to you. So that's sort of my messaging, and it's not that it's mutually exclusive from a human trafficking case or a drug trafficking case.
No, it's the same thing. It's very similar.
Run part and parcel.
One of the things, the product may be different, but the reasons why they do it, and they always say this, and if you want to discover crime, follow the cash. That's what's going to be your evidence, and it's really hard to clean cash and launder cash. David, very quickly, Validate Financial, that's number 8 instead of ATE, validatefinancial.com. Can they get a hold of you there and get more information about what you do?
Sure. Yeah, they can hit me up. I can get them a pilot of the platform. It doesn't cost them a thing. They get a login. It's unlimited users for the agency. Give it a try. We do a demo. We've got some great folks that can talk you through your cases. Anytime, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, or I'm just at d.tyree at validate, the number 8, financial.com. You can also email me personally at davidatyree@gmail.com. I'll do whatever I can to help you out.
David,
if I can't help you, I'll find somebody
for your
who can.
service, and thanks for being guest on the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. Both very much appreciated.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jay.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. The Law Enforcement Talk radio show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or 2 or 3. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.